Welcome back to College Football Weekly. Well, two FCS schools this week have upset FBS opponents. Earlier in the show, we spoke with the head coach of Delaware, Ryan Carty, who beat Navy. And now we're joined by the head coach of William & Mary, Mike London, who defeated Charlotte 41-24. And Coach, I know that resiliency is something that you ascribe to as a very important trait for your student athletes. Talk a little bit about just how resilient your players were in the win over Charlotte.
Yeah, Brian, I was very pleased and excited about the way the players performed and how they were resilient. How you adjust to adversity, how you go into a hostile environment, an FBS team, 80+ something scholarships, and here you are, FCS trying to hang on and worried about your depth. But our guys went in there, they played hard. They over 500 yards, offense. We were able to run the ball with conviction and authority. And I think towards the end, when you looked at it, we were in better. I believe we outlasted them because we were in better shape. I mean, there was the last few possessions. We kind of made them punt out of their end zone, and then the one before that was one that was on the 30-yard line, coming out. So it's just a tribute to the strength and conditioning coach, Kenny O'Mary. He's done a good job when the guys are here in June and July, August camp, those dog days of summer camp. But just really pleased about overcoming the adversity, and also, as you mentioned, the resiliency of, bend but don't break, just bend but don't break. And we're really happy to see that come to fruition.
I know you're now in your fourth season at William & Mary, but it had to be somewhat of a wild ride. You start in 2019, everything's going along normal, and then all of a sudden the COVID restrictions hit in 2020. There's cancellations. It really just amazes me, though, looking at your roster, how many guys have stuck with it the entire time.
Yeah, Brian, it was crazy. Imagine you play a season in 19, and then you go through the pandemic. 20, there is no season. We played 3 games in the spring, and then 21, our last season, had the best opportunities to get those guys playing college football games. We a winning season since I believe 2015 or something like that. So then to have the guys, those same guys you recruited that you brought in as freshmen in 2019 to kind of grow up and mature a little bit, have them as leaders, and then have them playing in games, which is a meaningful game. Every game is meaningful, but when you're on the road playing an FBS team, hostile environment, people don't give you an opportunity, a chance to win, and then you outperform, in big ways. It goes all back to the leadership developed coaches that have done a great job of make sure we create the culture that we're in. William & Mary is a great academic institution, which requires, you doing your best there, but you can have the best of both worlds by getting a great education, but also competing.
Your sophomore quarterback, Darius Wilson, has been really impressive. I know he was just named the CAA Offensive Player of the Week. Can you talk just about what you've seen from his development from freshman to sophomore seasons?
Yeah, Brian, Darius, I still don't think he's shaving right now. I don't think he grows any facial hair, so which is okay. I mean, he was the freshman offensive player of the year for the CAA, last year, and now he's a sophomore, and so he's matured. He was here during the summer months. He got around our coordinators and quarterback coach Matt Johns, Christian Taylor, and watched film and went out on his own and did 7-on-7 with the wide receivers and versus the DBs, and he got bigger, faster, stronger. So Darius did a great job directing the offense and facilitating the ball to our running backs, to our wide receivers. There were a lot of touches, a lot of explosive plays, and he contributed to a lot of those explosive plays. So, he can only get better. He will get better. But, as a young man, he's a great young man. He got $1 million smile. I love him, and look forward to him to continue his development.
You have a gentleman on defense who I think is just a fascinating individual, who may very well have an opportunity to play in the NFL someday, but he's also a real leader on and off the field. Can you talk a little bit more and tell our audience about Nate Lynn?
Yes, Brian. What a phenomenal player. He's a guy that can play multiple positions. Defensive end, he can play inside. He can do a lot of things. You can match him up. As the game goes on. You can create stunts and things like that will allow him to showcase his talents. But the other thing he's just got an unbelievable, relentless attitude, and whether it's versus the run or versus the pass. You're right. He's got a lot of preseason CAA defensive player of the year. But he said, Coach, it's not the beginning of the year. It's what they call me at the end of the year. And so he's taken that attribute and wants to make sure he does what he needs to do. And our staff has done a really good job. Now we're a 3-4 defense, and so he's got a position coach, Kenny Carter, that played it in college and in the NFL. He's got a defensive coordinator, Vince Brown, that played linebacker for the Patriots that taught this defense. Daryl Blackstock, the outside linebacker coach who played 7 years in the NFL, teaching pass rush and stuff. And then as a head coach, I coached the position in college, coordinated, now the head coach. So he's got knowledgeable people that are behind him, helping him, learn the defense. But one thing he's got God-given ability and talent, and that's the thing that that people can see, and I appreciate you noticing that as well, because he does stand out and he is one of our better players.
I find your story to be incredibly inspiring, and I'm sure many others will as well. Can you talk a little bit about your journey from the NFL into law enforcement and how you arrived at where you are today?
Wow, Brian, man, you gonna get me fired up on that one, man. So I'm a big Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you for your hope in the future." And I spent a cup of coffee with the Cowboys, and when Tom Landry was the head coach at that time, and I was always wanted to be, if I wasn't playing football, I wanted to be, because my dad was in the military, fought in the jungles of Vietnam, and he's dealing with the impact or effects of Agent Orange right now. So going through some tough times with that, but he was my inspiration of wanting to be a U.S. Marshal or Secret Service or FBI. And so I went that route and had to join the Richmond Police Department in Richmond, Virginia. Became a police officer for about uniform guy for 6 months, and then became a police detective. And literally interacted with individuals that let's just say that did not treat people well. And it was one of those things, one of those nights that we were, armed robbery was done in South Richmond, and my partner and I, in plain clothes, the call comes out and there's no cars on the road, and at a traffic light right behind the vehicle, the description of the vehicle was us and the car, nobody else around. And fate just had it that, they tried to get away, and we followed behind them, and they pulled into a driveway and turned around and faced us. I jumped out of the car, identified myself as a police officer. They wouldn't get out of the car, so I don't know if it was training or some idiocy, but if that's such a word from me, I jump in the driver's door and try to wrestle the guy from the steering wheel. He pulls a gun out and pulls a trigger, and it goes click.
Wow. Ooh.
So that was one thing, and then later on, which got me into coaching, because I'm like, I don't think I'll do this anymore. But I have a lot of respect for men and women out there in the uniform. And then real quick, as I got into coaching, daughter Tyson, when I was at Boston College, got real sick and had to, we took her to the Children's Hospital. I said, your daughter has Fanconi anemia, which is your body inability to fight off infections. The only cure is a bone marrow transplant. And as a young parent, you're like, well, okay, where do you get one of those? How do you buy one of those? What do they cost? And it's like, it's not that easy. You have to get up on the registry, the bone marrow registry, to find a donor. And so we go on the registry and can't find a donor. And without finding the donor, it was inevitable that she was going to leave this earth. And I was leaving Boston College, coming to Virginia, and this brings back tough memories, but trying to find a match. Finally, the doctors at John Hopkins Hospital said, Mr. London, let's try you, a parent. But the odds of the parent being a match are, I heard 10,000 to 1, 1,000,000 to 1, or whatever it was. And so I mean, I'll never forget that at Johns Hopkins Hospital, got a call. My wife and I got a call, and they said, you're the match for the perfect match for your daughter. And so we did the procedure at Johns Hopkins, and that was 19 plus years ago, and my daughter is cancer-free, living. She's an athletic trainer for a local high school. So you're right, Brian. You know, people like to count you out or minimize you or marginalize things that go on in your life, but I thank God that I'm here, because that night in Richmond, I shouldn't be here, and I thank God that I was able to be a perfect match for my daughter when the odds, particularly in the African American community, finding perfect matches are very, very rare. And so we do bone marrow drives as a head coach. The different places that I've been, I've had 8 people identified as perfect matches and saved people's lives. So life imitates art, or whatever you want to say, but those are 2 significant elements in a career that says, you know what, man, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And so, you know, and having fun now coaching, you know, closer to my parents, closer to my wife's mother, and it's been a blessing. It's been a journey, but it's been a blessing. And so, but that's kind of the crux of it. Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. So as one man sharpens another, and that's a job of a coach or anybody that deals with these young student athletes, that you help them mature and develop and bring them to that A to Z process of, okay, I get it now, coach. So that's the long and short of it, Brian, but thanks for asking the question.
Amazing, Coach. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I know we're getting close to a break here, but tonight, William and Mary, their home opener, hosting Campbell, Mike Minner's squad. What kind of atmosphere are you expecting for the game tonight?
Coach Minner's done a fantastic job, you know, and they beat the Citadel. I know that Campbell had the number 1 recruiting class FCS-wise. I know that, you know, that they got transfers, you know, that they benefited off the transfer portal as well. They have big, tall, athletic players that can run and are fast. Offensively, you know, they're spread out a little bit, but they do run, you know, they run a lot of counters and you know, and read plays and things like that, stuff that we've seen. But they have guys, they have athletes that are phenomenal. They have 2 bookend offensive tackles that are 6'7" plus. I mean, they might be the biggest team that you know, they will play. Our work will be cut out for us. It's our home opener at 6:00, so we're hoping that, you know, that our students, our fan base, you know, people around will be supporting us. There was a large group that supported us when we went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and so we're expecting that kind of group and a sizable group to show up for our first home opener. So we're excited about it and look forward to the challenge. Another really, really good football team, and it doesn't get any easier, you know, but at the same time, this is what competition is all about.
Well, thank you again, Coach. I so much appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
And that was Mike London, the head coach of William and Mary, coming off of a big win over Charlotte. Well, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes to wrap things up here. This is College Football Weekly on SportsMap Radio.